Afternoon and welcome. Good to have you here. Just give it a couple of minutes till a few more people come on and then we get started. We're due to start at 2:30. So just give it a couple of minutes, okay? Thanks, Freddie. That's Freddie just coming in from the Cork Mind Body Experience show. That's on today and tomorrow. And he's just sharing it on the website page there. So welcome to all my friends down in Cork. Hope you're all keeping well. It's been a long time since I've been down there with you all. Hope you're keeping well. Yeah, so we'll be covering Ancestral Family Healing Day, the purpose of it, and we'll talk a bit about intergenerational healing and how that impacts on all of us. And just bear with me a second. I'm just going to upload the live onto my laptop here so I can actually pick up the questions and we can have a questions and answers session as soon as I find the live on my page. There we go. Let's see how that is today. It's a bit better. Yeah, I cut my head off this morning with the camera a little bit. Yeah. So. Okay. Still numbers coming in, so I'll give it another minute or two, guys, before we start. Call in the light as always. Healing light. And so, healing with the ancestors. Numbers are still coming up. Just bear with me another minute or two till we hit 2:30 and then we get started. People still be just moving around looking for the live. So, we'll see how we go after that. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, do just type them up and put them in the comments, and I'll be delighted to fill you in on as much as I can today. As I said earlier, this is kind of to try and give people a kind of an insight into what it actually entails to understand ancestral healing and what it's really about. And I touched on this subject myself, my own personal healing over 20 odd years ago, when I got to a certain point where there were certain issues just wouldn't shift, things just wouldn't move. There was energies around and I just couldn't clear them no matter what I did. They kept coming back around me, the same stuff kept recycling itself. And then I realised, okay, I've got to go deeper into this, and that's when the ancestral work came up for me. Long before there was anybody out doing ancestral work outside of what I was doing, I was actually experiencing it firsthand. So as soon as I had that experience of working with it and how powerful it was to work in a certain way with the ancestors, I started to teach it to people, and then I presented it, and then in the RDS many years ago, and it took off from there. So a lot of people have since gone on to explore it further, and it's a very important part of our whole healing journey, because when we come to live in a village or a community together, there's a kind of a consensus of perception of what is accepted and what's not. In other words, what's normal and what's not normal. And what you can find is that a lot of the stuff that was carried by our ancestors is also carried within us, within our collective psyche. And in some cases, we're actually born into it. It's around us. It's from the moment you come into this reality, it's there. It's like putting on clothes. It's just put on you. and you carry it along with you. And it's only when you begin to realize, hold on a minute, something is not right here, something is not supporting me. Why do I feel this way? Why am I this way? Why am I not in balance? Why am I feeling unhappy in myself? You'll find that you're carrying. You can go and do your therapy work, you can do your past life regressions, you can do your reverting work, you can do all that sort of stuff, and yet something will not clear for you, and you can't get closure on something until you then finally get to that point where you're ready to go into that deeper work, working with the ancestors. And the purpose of Ancestral Family Healing Day, National Day, is to try and get the collective of the people on this island to acknowledge, first of all, the losses in the past, the traumas, because we have collective trauma and collective soul loss still buried within the psyche of the Irish people. It's buried, and what I mean by buried, it's buried, it's hidden, it's pushed away, it's like as if it's not there. And on National Ancestral Family Healing Day last year, we done it for the first time at Sound, the time of the ancestors. And we got people to research before the day to find their local sites. There are 220 workhouse sites in Ireland, and each of them has an unmarked grave, a mass grave. And some people call them, Bully's Acre, some people call them the Potter's Field, but what they are is they're aware that the people who ended up in the workhouses during the time of the famine who died, they were just dumped into mass graves, and that was it. And you'll see stories and you'll read stuff about it where they had one coffin with a sliding bottom on it. So they put some in, they bring them to the pit and they just pulled the bottom out and dropped them into the hole. And that was their way of disposing of our ancestors. So there's collective loss in that, there's collective grief, there's a lot of stuff. And what you'll find today is all of these, actually the majority of these 220 sites have been hidden, buried or built over. And some years ago I was involved with a group from up in Longford near Ballyman, where they wanted to build apartments on top of the graves, of the mass grave. And of course, it was during the Celtic Tiger, so some local people got together and they put a petition together and they went to the council, and lo and behold, they built the apartments. The apartments are now on top of the graves of our ancestors. So you see, a lot of it has been buried and pushed away. And what it's doing is it's creating a collective neurosis, or a mental health issue for us as people. Because we have got mass soul loss, and we've got this massive sense of, unfinished business with our past. And the souls of our ancestors, a lot of them are still kind of caught up in this energy of this trauma, and it's still coming down the timeline to us. And the interesting thing is that when people think about a timeline, they seem to think, well, my present is here, my future is in front of me, and my past is behind me. But it's not actually a linear line, it's a lateral line. It goes across. So my past, my present, my future are all in the moment, here and now. So I'm in all three. My past, my present, my future are all in the moment. So we talk about being present and mindful. It's about holding the centered space to heal the past and to also harmonize the future. And we're in the center. So they're all happening simultaneously because, as you know, tomorrow never comes. It's always today. So you're always in today. So the idea is that you bring with you, in your perception of reality, this harmonious space that heals. And the first thing to do is to, sometimes we say, oh, something came up in my last session with my therapist or my healer. Where did it come up from? It's from the past. And if we don't learn from our past, we're destined to repeat it. And so the Irish nation, as I see it, are a disempowered collective in denial of trauma. And when that happens, you see people come back from a war, Vietnam vets, God love them, they came back and they were traumatized. Back in the earlier wars, it was called shell shock. And the trauma left people in a disorientated state where they were still caught in a loop. They'd suppressed all of this trauma, but they were damaged by it, and then they went on to damage people around them. And the terrible thing is, when this goes through many generations of families, the abuse that's manifested from it is quite distressing and disturbing to see. And then people self-abuse and their, addictions, depression, anxiety, all of this stuff plays out in it. And I've seen this in many of the indigenous peoples around the world. You look at the African American people, you look at the First Nations people in America, And they've all had their language and their land and their spiritual teachers ripped away from them, and their culture destroyed. And we had that done to us here too. And we seem to forget that we had a Holocaust where our people died in their millions from starvation on the sides of the road, cast out to die on the streets and the roads, the back roads of Ireland. So a lot of our, sadly, a lot of our ancestors were traumatized by this, and I believe that we still haven't healed it, we haven't dealt with it properly, we haven't shone a light of illumination into it yet to lift that trauma and that heavy energy from all of us on the island, not just those who are in addiction and those with depression and suicide ideation, but all of us. We're all impacted by it. And I've spoken to people who come to this island from other places, and I've asked them, says, can you feel the heaviness on the land? And they say, oh yeah. I says, on the people, most definitely. And it's about repression. You know, we've had a history of repression of over 800 years. That needs healing as well. So talking about these issues and bringing these up is about helping us to recognize how we can, as a people, empower ourselves. Because as a nation, we're just over 100 years old. We're a very young nation, and we haven't actually, we're still only learning to walk. We haven't actually stood up on our own 2 feet yet and really moved forward in an empowering way. We've seen ourselves being continually disempowered even to this day. So it's about people's awareness being raised up, and people's expectation of joy and happiness and justice and fairness will manifest for all of us on our island. So with all of that, there's in some cases you'll find some people will get quite angry when they look at this stuff, and that's not the way to move forward, because that keeps us stuck in the old habits. You know, anger and denial of the pain. We need to go into a proper grieving process to grieve what we lost as a nation. We lost our soul connection. Same as the First Nations people, the Native American Indians in America, the African American people, torn from their land as well, the same as we were. So all of this needs to be acknowledged, and we need to reclaim that power that we had taken away from us, because we have what's on the island what's called a collective soul loss, and there's a massive denial of it. So when somebody like me comes on and starts to shine a light on it to show people, the majority of people, how they have been disempowered, well then the shadow side doesn't want that to happen. So there's always a conflict. So the idea of ancestral family healing days to heal the shadow side of our collective, to heal the wound, and to go deep within that to empower us as a people and as a nation. And the idea of the Ancestral Family Healing Day is a day of illumination, of bringing light to all of these sites around the country. Some of them, as I said, there's 220 workhouses. We had, of course, the mother and babies homes, the orphanages, and the industrial schools. They probably make up another 150 sites. So people last Samhain, Halloween time, they went and they visited. Before they visited, they had to go and do research to track down where the actual graves were. And a group of us got together from around the country, healers from different parts of Ireland got together, and we done live ceremony on Facebook because of lockdown. But we also had people who were within their travelling restrictions could get to a local site, and they laid flowers and a candle, and there was a special prayer of invocation that was used to begin to raise the vibrations around these sites, to help these souls who haven't yet crossed over to make it to the other side, and to lift this collective grief from our people, and to illuminate that part, and to bring out the best of what it is to be Irish, and to be able to heal our past and our deep, deep, deep wounding within the collective of our psyche. So acknowledging that is the start, because as I said earlier, you know, if we don't learn from our past, we're destined to repeat it. And you know, we do know we humans are creatures of habit. We continue to experience and to continue with the same old. Oh, the devil you know is better than the one you don't. So stay with what you know best now. Don't try anything new. Don't take a risk. No, stay there now. You know, and that's all about control and fear. There's nothing creative in that at all. So it's about stepping outside of your comfort zone and embracing new ideas. And as soon as you do that, something will begin to hold you back, and that's the part of you that you need to heal, because it's about being free to be able to spontaneously connect in and to connect with the spirit of the ancestors and to bring forward everything that's so wonderfully creative and spiritual about our people and this island. So let me see that there's a few people coming in with greetings and messages, so I just want to just check in and see how we're doing, and then I'll get back to you. Okay. If you've got any questions about what I'm talking about, please do ask them, type them in. Don't forget, this is the National Ancestral Family Healing Day poster and broadcasting, so please do like it and come in. And there's a list of over 220 of the workhouses and some of the industrial schools and the mother and babies homes listed. And a lot of the sites are hidden. The locations are here. I have them on that page. Go in and have a look at the locations, see which one is closest to you. And if you can go along and find it, take some photographs. You can post them up on the page. We've also got a group which I'll invite you into once you like the page. And we're building that up. We have a couple of hundred there at the moment of people who are actively involved in locating sites and cleaning them up, bringing flowers and a candle to them each sound, and putting up some sort of a little notice as to what the place actually is. Some of them are just fields. They've been overgrown. So it's to do a little bit of research in your local area and to be able to bring light to these places, for us to acknowledge the loss. If we don't acknowledge a loss, well, then it just festers within us all. And that's what's been going on for a very, very long time. Okay, let me see who I've got on here now. Just give me a second to pull this in a bit closer so I'm still on camera. Elaine Doyle says, this is such an important movement. Thank you. How does one release the anger related to these traumas? Well, Elaine, it's a combination of anger and pain. And you know, it's much easier to stay in the pain, the anger, than it is to deal with the pain. So I've done ceremony through the years, and I've played this particular plains flute here, which was made for me by a medicine man in the States to open people's hearts. And I do some keening as well within my ceremonies, and I do channel the spirits of some of the ancestors. And one was a mother, actually, a woman, and she was crying for her children who had died beside her. They died in her arms from starvation. So this is why we give out so much money around the world to these charities and to these families when we see them, because it strikes a chord within us that we still remember. And many, many years ago, over 20, actually it would be 25, 30 years ago now, I had the privilege of greeting one of the members of the Choctaw Nation to Ireland. And not many people knew back then, but I did, that they sent us money during the famine. So I got a special baron made up with the 4 provinces on it, the 4 directions. And we presented it to him at a ceremony in Dublin here in the Clondalkin Holistic Healing Centre then, to acknowledge what they'd given to us and for him to bring it back to his people in America and to let them know that we still remember and we still appreciate what they did for us. So it's not just our people in Ireland who are suffering this, it's right across the world with Indigenous people. So Elaine, when you ask about how do you overcome the anger, it's about processing and going deep into the wound. And it starts off really, you know, the core wound, you could say, is a collective, but there's also an individual one. So when somebody projects out anger onto an issue like this about the injustices, it's usually some injustice from your own past that's getting triggered as well. So it's a twofold thing. You're working with the ancestors to help to lift that, but you're also healing yourself at the same time. So it's to go back and reflect on what could be triggering this from my past that has me so angry about it. And of course, it's to do with being a spiritual being coming into a human body and experiencing human imperfection and the way that we're all shut down, the way we're hurt, the way we're not acknowledged, the way we're not nurtured the way we need to be as children coming into spiritual beings, because our parents and our great-grandparents, and going back to the generations, have been so disconnected from the ancient beliefs and this true spiritual concept of holding harmony between mind and body and soul to manifest illuminating light of unconditional love to heal. So it's a journey, and anger is the first phase. It's kind of like an unacknowledged loss. What happens when people go into denial about a loved one who has died? They get stuck in anger and denial, and then they go into depression, and then they have, they end up on some form of medication trying to resolve this chemical imbalance that they then manifest in their body. So it's a combination of bringing all that back together. But it starts with the acknowledgement, first of all, of the loss. And, if something triggers our anger, It's to go back inside and find, okay, what's behind my anger? And the sense of injustice, sense of something being wrong, being done to me, being done to my people, being done to my land for generations, and you have people getting upset all the time and conflicting and fighting and taking sides, us against them, and politics and all that stuff comes into play, and it's all about, it separates and it doesn't really unite us. So it's to get past that stage to a place where we end up experiencing the grief, the pain. And that's when the real healing takes place. Feel it to heal it. And many people were moved to tears at Sound last year, myself included, doing the ceremonies, because there's a collective grief on this land that we haven't even begun to look at. So Sound last year was the beginning of lifting the darkness and shining a light into those hidden, buried places. The industrial schools, the orphanages, they all have hidden graves. There's bodies of children and women buried all over the place in this country who haven't been acknowledged in these institutions. That's what we're holding the ceremony for. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Elaine. Yeah, anger is to do with acknowledge anger, working out, acknowledge the anger, work through the anger, and you'll find you'll get to the other side of it, and you'll find that there's a wound in there, And there's also just, as I said, there's a collective wounds that those of us who held the space, all the healers who worked last year for National Ancestral Family Healing Day, everyone was touched and moved deeply by what we experienced on the day. It was massive. And even as I speak now, I can feel that moving through my heart again today. There's a great sense of fulfillment, but there's also a great sense of sadness and a loss and something really, really heavy. And even working up to launching the day last year, it's the culmination of over 20 years of my work to get to the point where this vision became a reality, where I had people traveling right around the country to different sites to hold a light and to lift this from our past and to lift it from our present as well, so that we have a better future for the coming generations. Elaine says, thanks a mil. I look inwards. So do you think this trauma is being brought to the surface now that there is a feeling of oppression again? Absolutely, yeah. I mean, everything happens for a reason, and I always try to turn everything into something positive and look at the positives that come from what's going on at the moment, rather than going into the negative and going into the anger. But yes, it is frustrating. Yes, it is difficult. But at the end of the day, something good will always come out of everything, because I see it as a test. I see it as a test, and it depends on what way you actually process it. Going back to the 11th of March last year, when I started doing lives to support people, I said to people, look, we're in lockdown, let's pretend we're on a spiritual retreat. And I come on every morning, we've done meditations and every night, and people got a great amount of support. We've done a lot of great healing. And yes, Elaine, we're being sent inside now at the moment. We're being put into isolation to go inside, to sit and do the inner work. Because the inner work is what starts you on the journey. And you get to a certain point, like I did after a good 15 or 20 years of doing work on myself. I discovered there was something stuck and I wouldn't move. So I had to go back and do work around my grandparents and my great-grandparents and do some digging through the family tree and do healing around all of that for me as well. And then I went into the collective, and realized, oh my God, there's a collective energy here that had me repressed as well. It was kind of like a heavy, wet blanket over the whole island, and I was stuck under it as well. It was more like a muddy, wet sack than a blanket, actually. It was just repression. And when we don't acknowledge it, it can cause us problems. When we do, we can work with it and we can heal it. So it's about bringing it into the light, bringing it into our consciousness and talking about it. Like today, we're having this exchange, and as I say, if you're interested, please do like the page and come in, and what I'll do is I can invite you into the group then, and it's building a network right around Ireland, to the four corners of Ireland, to find every single site and to acknowledge it and to place an AF memorial there, where we put flowers, we bring a candle, we bring the invocation, and we'll be singing and doing all sorts of ceremony work at these different sites. Thanks for that question, Lynn. That was really good. Okay, so I'm just waiting for more questions to come in and I can answer them. As I said, the day on its own is on Sound, the day of Halloween, which is the day of the ancestors. So the idea is that we celebrate the ancestors that day, and the more we work with the ancestors and the more we remember and reflect on the Holocaust here in Ireland. It wasn't a famine, it was a Holocaust, you know, and it was mostly the poor and the vulnerable who were the ones who were exposed to the, they call it the Great Hunger, but in actual fact, there was plenty of food in Ireland at the time, you know, and that's the terrible thing about it, the injustices of it all. So all of that repression, all of the anger that's around it, all the darkness, all the hiding of the information, the hiding of the mother and babies' homes, the hiding of the abuse in the industrial schools, by the church, and also what happened to our people in the time of they call the Great Hunger. All of this was like our trail of tears that the Cherokee talk about being marched in their thousands across the snowy plains in the middle of winter, some of them barefoot, and them dying along the way. You know, we had a similar experience here, and it's time to acknowledge that. And it's not about stirring up negative feelings of, you know, wanting to go out and to get vengeance. It's more to acknowledge that it was that, and that it was a horrific time for our people, and for, you know, it's just it doesn't bear even talking about, because it still is quite disturbing when to think about, you know, families sitting in their house watching each other starving to death, you know, eating grass. You know, dark times, very dark times. So a lot of work to be done there, and that's why I felt it so important that at some point I would declare a national day of healing for the ancestors, because it's healing us too. We're all a product of that what went before us, and the thing is that people don't realize that we carry a collective perception, which we all, it's like being in a bubble together, and if we all go along pretending that this did not happen, well, we're destined to disempower ourselves continuously with people who come into this country and who take charge. So I'm talking about empowering the Irish people in a spiritual way, of bringing back in and healing the fear of challenging authority, the fear of authority, the way we were brought up to bow down to the Catholic priest and to bow down to anybody in authority. No, look them straight in the eye now and smile at them, because we are all one here. It's the separation of us that disempowers us, when we're broken down and divided. Division is what causes the loss of power, and we've had massive division in this country through the generations, and we're just beginning to come out. The current young generation of people have copped onto that, you know. And as I say, we're only a very young nation, just over 100 years, you know, developing. We still haven't really got up on our feet yet and began to exercise our rights properly, because we're still carrying a lot of this fear and this repression energy from the past. So it's time to lift this, to bring a new hope to this island and to our people, and to illuminate, because we are a beautiful race of people, and we carry our energy and our stories and our music right across the world. And it's now time to, you know, regenerate ourselves and come out again in a more, what do I call it, truthful, spiritual, honest way about our past. And to, as I said, you know, it's difficult not to get angry about it, but, you know, the anger is our own pain. Yes, injustice, it's not about accepting, it's realizing that it was wrong, but that, you know, it's not about us, you know, two wrongs don't make a right. It's, you know, not about going out and beating people over the head because of what happened. It's realizing, acknowledging what our ancestors went through, acknowledging them, and remembering them each year as we move forward. And each year we lift more and more of that energy from our collective consciousness on this island, because it's a collective soul loss we have. We've a nation's soul loss. And how can a nation lose its soul? Well, look at Ireland. We have the First Nations people in America, they've lost us, but we're working it back, we're taking it back. But it's about, if we don't talk about it, it won't happen. And if we don't acknowledge it, it doesn't come into our reality. We just pretend it's not there. We just walk by that old site, walk by that field that's been covered in brambles and nettles and stuff for years. No one's gone to visit it. Why? Because there's something in there we don't want to deal with. Well, bring light, the prayer of invocation, that's the start. And once we're starting with that, we're acknowledging it, it starts to lift it and starts to heal it. And that's the purpose of the day. And as I said before, please do like the page. I can invite you into the groups. Check out the page as well. There are some videos from some of the presenters, the healers who held space with us last year. And this year again, for Sound, October 31st, we'll be doing the same again, and every year from now on. We want to declare it a national ancestral family healing day with healers holding the space. This is not a political thing. This is for healing. So hence, we don't want governments and we don't want politicians involved in this at all. We want ordinary people, the people themselves, to recognize and acknowledge this and to empower the people through these ceremonies. Okay? Just checking, see if any more messages coming in. No, that seems to be it at the moment. Let's see, is that question there on that one? Yeah, no, I got that one. Okay, so if you've got any questions about, locations, about the day itself, just pop them up there now and I'll answer them for you. That's what I'm here for, to give you as much information as I can. And in case you don't know who I am, my name is Dermot O'Hara, and I've been working in the healing field for over 30 years now, and I've been holding space and ceremonies for a very long time. You might notice I'm wearing a logo here. It's Bridget's Celtic Grove of Illumination. So I've been working in the Grove of Bridget for the last 20 odd years and promoting her as a goddess for the past 30 years. So I set up the Grove about 20 years ago to promote goddess awareness and the healing of the goddess, the healing of the sacred feminine, and that aspect. Being a man, most men, the feminine side of us gets damaged fairly early on and gets shut down. So it was about acknowledging that part of me that needed to be healed. Again, acknowledging the need begins the journey. Same with acknowledging the need to do the ancestral healing work begins the journey for all of us, because it's a collective. It's not an individual thing. Everybody on this island has been impacted by it. Every single one of us. We've been born into this energy. So it becomes an accepted norm, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for us. Just becomes accepted, yeah. Lane says, I live in Rathdrum, Wicklow. Apparently there's a mass family grave on the Lara Road, so we could have a ceremony there. Beautiful, yeah. If you can go even soon and take some photographs of it and put up the location and the address, it's that other people can go and visit it between now and Sound, and can just bring prayers and offerings to the ancestors there, and just to honour the site. And you'll find maybe that's just an overgrown field now. Maybe even going to cut a little bit of the grass and designate an area where you can leave maybe a candle and a prayer. And the invocation prayer is on the page. People have actually printed it, downloaded and printed it, and they've laminated it and put it on the sites. And it's just a prayer to invoke the light into these sites, to lift the energy of these places. Because a lot of these souls, most of them died in trauma. They didn't have easy deaths. They didn't, and a lot of them didn't cross over. So that's the purpose of the work. It's to do soul retrieval on a national level, to lift the energy, to lift the fog of neurosis from our land, so we can see what's really going on in front of us and to wake up. I think you could say that collectively about the whole planet, never mind Ireland. But I believe we are leaders here, and we can lead the way for other groups. It's about raising the vibrations, raising the consciousness, getting the fog out of your eyes and seeing what's really going on, seeing where the shadow is working in the darkness, in the hidden corners, and playing these games of tricking us and, how would you say it, manipulating and controlling the situation for the interest of a very few small number of people. So the idea is to bring that back into balance, okay? And so we shine light on those areas, we expose the shadow in its actions, we see it for what it is, we expose it. So we're beginning by going back to the places where the shadow, the fear is buried and the repression is, in these places of these burial places. That's the beginning of it. And we can see recently it was interesting that last year, as the ceremonies were beginning and we were doing what we were doing, the mother and babies homes, things blew wide open at the same time. And as a few healers says, wow, talk about divine, timing. The whole thing came together at the same time. This wasn't motivated just in the last month or two. I've been contemplating this and putting energy into it for the past over 20 years. So last year was the first year of it to launch it, and I put the page up and people joined in, and it's a people thing. It's not mine. I'm simply here as, like, I suppose, the ambassador or the PR person for the day. It's your day. It's not my day. It's our day. Okay. And it's only by what we put into it will we get back. And if we recognize we need to invest light and healing into these areas of our past and into these sites, we will all benefit on the island. I've no doubt about that. I benefited greatly from the work that I did here, by healing the influences from my ancestors into my consciousness now, and it gives me a clearer picture. So I can see the game players out there when they're trying to play, and politicians don't like me. I see through them too much. Okay. So guys, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed that little talk. I'm just waiting to see if any more people come on with questions. A few people have come on late, so I'll do a little recycle of what I've spoken about in the last maybe 20 minutes or so. I'll just give you a brief overview. And then if you want any more information, just go into the page, read the information there, see what we did for last year. And if you need any more information, just message me there, or you can message me on my own page, Dermot Shaman O'Hara. And my website, actually, I'll put it up now because you'll get more information there, and you can contact me there as well. It's www.dermotoharaonline.com. And you get more information about that work and my other work that I do. I'm on this evening at 7 o'clock. I'm giving a workshop on healing through the chakras. So if you're around at 7 o'clock tonight, I look forward to seeing you. I'll be back on Bridget's Celtic Grove and Illumination page, but it'll be going out on the other page through the Cork Mind Body Experience live page. So to all of you down in Cork, I wish you a lovely day and a great weekend, and I shall see you all again tomorrow. So before I sign off, I'll just give you that link. There's the link. I'm putting it up on the stream there. And yeah, I'm just reading back through the messages. There's a few of them coming in now. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's the link. So yeah, in case you don't know who I am, my name is Dermot O'Hara. I've just been talking about the National Ancestral Family Healing Day. Some of you came in a little bit late, so I'll just do a quick review again. Last year we started with National Ancestral Family Healing Day. It was set up with a group of healers from all over the country. We got together and we went live every hour or every 25 minutes presenting healing ceremonies from around the country. And this is a culmination of over 20 years of work that I've been doing, working with healing ancestral lineage. And this stuff goes through every family in this country. All of our families were impacted by this, and you have to remember that. The loss of life during the Holocaust here, that they call the Great Hunger, when there was lots of food here, is one of the biggest ones, I believe. There's also the mother and baby homes, the burials there, and there's also the children who died and were murdered in the industrial schools and the reformatory schools that were never seen again. There's also the people who suffered in these places, who came out and passed on this trauma to their families and down through the generations. And I've come across some people who are third generation alcoholics, coming from their great grandfathers who were involved, or their grandfathers who were actually incarcerated in some of these industrial schools and reformatories. So you see, there's a lot of work to be done, and a lot of these places, children just went missing. They were never seen again. And this is what we need to be acknowledging and recognizing, that so much of this darkness went on in our island, and at a time when we were being so badly oppressed by outside forces. So we now have it within our island, and it's part of our collective here. So I do believe that we still are suffering from collective soul loss. In other words, the soul loss of a nation, of our people. And we're such a creative, spiritual race of people. I do believe it's time to acknowledge that loss, to heal it, to empower ourselves as a people, to get the illusion away and to see what's really going on, and to be able to break out of the oppression of what's been going on for a long, long time on our land, and about bringing people back into balance, bringing society back into balance, bringing in justice and fairness for people. So the ceremonies take place on Samhain each year. People are visiting as we speak and researching their local areas. There's 220 listed workhouses on the page. There's also there's the mothers and babies homes and the industrial schools there are listed as well. So if you want to go and find out where your one is, you'll find that there's an unmarked grave close by where people were buried. And there's some of them don't even have a headstone. So it's to do some research in your local area, and what you'll find is that a lot of these places have been grown over. In some cases they've built houses on them, apartment blocks, you name it, but to still go to the location because the ancestors are still there and they need to be prayed over, they need to be healed, because a lot of them are just dumped unceremoniously into these massive burial pits, and a terrible time in our past. So let's shine lots of light on it and to lift that from our past. And if you need any more information, just message me on the page here. You can go onto my website, dermotoharaonline.com. And I want to thank you all for taking part in my talk. I'm back again at 7 o'clock this evening again for Healing Through the Chakras, which will be a guided meditation and healing. And tomorrow, I'll just give you a little quick rundown. Tomorrow, I'm on at 12:30 tomorrow morning with talking about the flame of Bridget. So the Celtic goddess Bridget's flame of illumination. Then at 3 o'clock, I'm giving a talk on Chacalas, the Celtic sweat lodge. Okay. Then at 7 tomorrow evening, I'm doing Journey of the Drum. It's a shamanic healing journey with the drum. Speaking of drums, I have one beside me here. And if you're ever looking for a drum, please do keep me in mind. I now actually make them. This is one I just put together recently for somebody. This is a standard kind of baron size. That's that one. And then there's a smaller size, which is that's an 18. There's a 15-inch size as well, which is quite nice as well. This is this one here. And then I've got a smaller one for kiddies, and if you want to go traveling with one in your suitcase, this is the one for you, little 12-inch one. So that's the end of the commercial. If you want to check out anything else and get more information on the drums, there's also CDs, downloadable CDs on my website as well, and more information about all of this work there at dermotoharaonline.com. You can also get me on Dermot Shaman O'Hara. That's me on the Facebook, my own Facebook page, if you want to come in on that one. Okay, and that's about it, guys. I think I've about wrapped it up for the latecomers there. Anyone here from Kildare Town, the Barksfield is in need for sure. Maria, if you come onto the page, there's a lot of people. I think there's already some people in Kildare. There's Nason I was covered, and I think there's somebody in there. So if you'd link up with them, Maria, that would be great. So if you come in and like the page, I'll pull you into the group. There's already photographs up there in the group of many of the different sites that people are already working on. So thanks for that offer, Maria, and look forward to hearing from you soon with your progress on that. So there you go. And the same, Elaine, at Drum and Wicklow, excuse me, if you could get somebody down there, if you come onto the page, there's other people in different parts of the country already working on some of the sites. The site you're talking about may actually be covered at the moment, but get involved with the group and join in with them and hold the space down there for us at Sound. And of course before that as well, just to mark it out and tidy it up a little bit. Okay, so that's about it, guys. Thank you for joining me. I shall see you again this evening, as I say, at 7 o'clock for Healing Through the Chakras on Bridget's Grove Illumination page. And to all my friends in Cork, thanks for joining in, and enjoy the rest of the day and the show today and tomorrow. And hopefully it won't be too long before I'm able to go down in person and meet up with you all again. So I look forward to doing that soon. So thank you so much and have a lovely day. Okay. Thanks for that, Elaine. I'm just checking out here. You're very welcome, Helen. Thanks for that. Thanks for joining me, guys. Talk to you at 7. Bye. You're welcome, Maria. No problem. Take care.